This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Ten Palestinians were killed in new clashes in Gaza. Meanwhile, Hamas and Fatah confirmed that they are still committed to the Mecca Agreement and the Egyptian-sponsored ceasefire. In the latest episode of violence, an officer from the Preventive National Security Agency was killed in an area west of Gaza. Earlier in the day, 8 Palestinians, mostly national security officers, were killed near the Mintar Passage in the eastern Gaza Strip. The Izz ad-Din Qassam Brigade, the military wing of Hamas, denied responsibility for the attack on the National Security Force. The sound of Israeli gunfire was also heard in the Mintar area. In addition, one commander from the Izz ad-Din Qassam brigades was killed in clashes that erupted between Hamas and Fatah in the Shuja'iyya district in the eastern Gaza Strip.
The ink used to sign the overnight ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Fatah has not yet dried up when a new wave of violence had erupted on Palestinian streets. Meanwhile, Hamas and Fatah held each other responsible for the new violence. The Command Center for the National Security Agency confirmed that several of its officers were killed and wounded after their convoy came under fire in the eastern Gaza Strip. It blamed Hamas for the attack. According to a source affiliated with the Palestinian Presidential Office, a group from the Qassam Brigades, the military wing for Hamas, surrounded and fired mortar shells on a national security post in the Mintar Commercial Passage east of Gaza Strip, wounding several officers. On the other hand, the Izz ad-Din Qassam brigades, which announced that one of its members was killed last night in clashes, denied responsibility for the attack on the Mintar security post and added that none of its members were present during the attack. Furthermore, the Qassam brigades accused members of the National Security Agency and the Presidential Guards of igniting the already deteriorating security situation in the Gaza Strip by relying on false information. The deteriorating security situation and the new clashes between Fatah and Hamas in the Gaza Strip reflected negatively on the general mood of the Palestinians in the occupied territories. Palestinians describe what is happening in the Gaza Strip as a Nakba or catastrophe.
We as a nation have suffered tremendously. We continue to suffer from the occupation as well as the ongoing killings that targeted many martyrs and victims. What they are doing is totally wrong, wrong, wrong. We should be united not by words but by action.
The phrase, "we the Palestinian people," is much bigger than the phrase, "we the party, sect, or institution." We, the Palestinian people, came out here today to tell everyone, especially those officials in charge, to either take a responsible action to stop the violence that is posing a threat to our national plight, or to, quite frankly, leave office.
Meanwhile, the Israeli army did not hesitate to take part in the killing of Palestinians. One Palestinian man was killed and another was wounded after they approached the electrical fence east of Gaza. The Israeli army said that it opened fire on the men because they posed a threat to Israel's security. Observers described what is happening in Gaza as a struggle for power, and they called on Palestinian leaders to focus their approach with the occupation and not on self-interests.
The power-sharing initiative signed in the Mecca Agreement has not materialized on the ground. Each side did not get what it believes it signed for. Consequently, clashes will continue to erupt every now and then until the entire Mecca Agreement is reviewed and all of its articles are implemented based on clear principles. Then each side must be given its share of power, because the struggle is indeed a struggle for power.
A ceasefire between Fatah and Hamas was followed by yet another one, and a third one. What is next? The question has become a source of worries for the Palestinians, who are now more desperate than ever as they see their blood being shed by their own.
Jazeera, Gaza, Palestine.
Joining us from Ramallah to follow up on the developments on the ground in Gaza is Dr. Mustafa al-Barghouti, the Palestinian Minister of Information. Dr. Barghouti, there is agreement after agreement, but the ground is on fire. What is happening?
الذي جرى بالأمس للأسف مباشرة بعد الاتفاق الذي تم
Regrettably, what happened yesterday immediately after an agreement was reached, it was violated. Of course, it was violated by both conflicting sides. It was violated in a savage way. We must not be silent or tolerate the savage assassination operation that targeted many people. Thus, we are now conducting many activities and holding a number of meetings since this morning with the aim of first, saving the agreements that were made and implementing the decisions that were made, mainly forming a joint operations command center, centralizing and uniting all the security agencies and ending the bloodshed, which threatens the Palestinian people today with another real catastrophe.
الشعب الفلسطيني اليوم بنكبة أخرى حقيقية.
نعم، ولكن دكتور برغوثي لو سمحت لي يعني
Dr. Barghouti, what do you think is happening? Is this conflict about authority, a political conflict, a power struggle?
No, what is happening, my brother? What authority are you talking about? These are illusions. We are an authority without power. This is an authority under occupation. Whoever thinks he is fighting over a position or leadership is delusional because we are all under occupation. The most we can compete for is to have a respectable position in leading the national struggle and lead the people to the desired destination. It appears that many people are unaware and are being misled, especially while the Gaza Strip is under siege. Some people have been deluded into believing that they can control others through force. This is nonsense. It has no value and no meaning. I think that there are some parties who have been harmed by this agreement, harmed by the success of the formation of a national unity government and the Palestinian agreements, because they know that establishing a united, centralized operations center is something that will happen for the first time in the history of the Palestinian Authority. It will close the door to many interests that are monopolized by many people.
Dr. Barghouti, when I ask you who are the harmed parties, you say Israel. Is Israel alone being harmed? Who are the other parties that are harmed? Why don't you name names?
No, I don't say that Israel alone is harmed. I'm saying that there are many parties cooperating with Israel.
Who are they?
On the other hand, there are parties that may not be cooperating with Israel, but benefit from the status quo and what is happening, and they don't want reforms.
Who are they?
They are the ones behind these clashes and organizing them. They are the ones sparking these clashes. Whenever we reach an agreement, they come out with a new clash that blows up the status quo. Then this clash is met by another clash. Earlier today, I spoke with my brothers in the Gaza Strip. We will continue our dialogue, and we don't want to hold this dialogue over satellite television channels. What's important is achieving results.
I understand why you don't want to name names. However, what do we need to do? Do we need to reevaluate the Mecca Agreement? Is there a need for a new local Mecca Agreement?
There is no need for a new agreement or even a new security agreement. Everything has been agreed upon. What we need is implementation. We need to establish a joint operations command center, and everyone must be committed to it. From this moment on, both Hamas and Fatah must also be committed not to respond to any violation against the other. Such a situation should be referred to and investigated by the joint command center so we can limit this deterioration. Thus, the initiative will be transferred to the real Palestinian leadership and not be placed in the hands of ignorant, unaware or malicious people who want to draw Palestine and its people into another unimaginable catastrophe.
From Ramallah, Dr. Mustafa al-Barghouti, the Palestinian Minister of Information. Thank you very much.
Palestinians are commemorating the anniversary of the painful Nakba, or the catastrophe, which took place on May 15, 1948. They were expelled from their homes, lands, and heritage. Today, the Palestinians are reaffirming their right of return, although it has not been achieved for many years. The residents of Wadi Fawqin near Bethlehem were an exception. They attained the right of return through persistence, struggle, and legal means. Our correspondent, Amani Abu Ghantesh, reports from there.
The dream to return home home is a dream that never leaves the mind of every Palestinian refugee. This dream has become true here in this village. Wadi Fukin village was one of the many Palestinian villages afflicted by the 1948 Nakba. The residents of these villages were the only ones who were able to overcome the suffering of the forceful migration and return to their homes against all odds.
We kept an eye on our village from the top of the mountain. When we saw that there were no people around, we signaled to everyone to return to their homes. We have always made sure that someone monitored the village from the top of the mountain. When the Jews forced the villagers to leave their homes, they would always return. This way we were able to keep our village. We continued to plant, water, and plow the land.
Some of the village's residents were martyred, but the rest survived to tell the story.
They put my father and I on top of the mountain. Some of them were standing around us, and others were shooting. They clashed with the Arabs. They took my father away, and two of them took me away. I walked 1 meter and fell because I was so afraid. All of a sudden, one bullet hit me in my neck and went out through here. The next day, we looked for my father and we found him dead. They forced him to put his finger in his mouth and made him kneel down before they emptied a Sten machine gun in him. My mother took me to his grave and told him, "Abu Ismail, here is your daughter, Wadha. May God have mercy on my father and mother."
The residents of Wadi Fukin spent many years going back and getting evicted from their village until the summer of 1972, when they finally returned to their homes for good. Hopefully, one day all Palestinian refugees will reap the fruits of return.
Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and Vice Premier Shimon Peres are in Jordan for a two-day conference of Nobel laureates. Jordan's King Abdullah opened the conference by urging participants to help the current generation in the Middle East make conflicts, quote, a chapter in the history books. Prime Minister Olmert held talks with Abdullah, his first dialogue with a foreign leader since the publication of the interim report of the Winograd Committee on the Second Lebanon War. The king called on Olmert to lift the economic sanctions on the Palestinian Authority and to release funds held by Israel. Jordanian sources said the two discussed reviving the diplomatic process with the Palestinians, the Arab Peace Initiative, and the role that moderate Arab states can play. Olmert today expressed a willingness to meet the leaders of the 22 Arab states to discuss the prospects of peace between Israel and its neighbors. Olmert is also expected to invite King Abdullah to visit Israel. And in related news, Vice Premier Peres is set to meet with the king on Sunday at a conference of the World Economic Forum in Jordan.
In related news, Vice Premier Shimon Peres has made it public that he will run for president again. The decision was announced by his associates. Peres is expected to officially declare his decision in the coming days. So far, only two people have announced that they are running for the president, Knesset member Reuven Rivlin and MK Colette Avital. Former Chief Rabbi Israel Meir Lau has yet to decide whether to join the race.
A second hearing regarding the presidential sex scandal got underway earlier this afternoon at the Office of the Attorney General in Jerusalem. President Moshe Katzav's attorney said they were confident that the new evidence they were presenting would convince the Attorney General not to recommend indicting the president. Katzav is suspected of a number of counts of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and rape.
Well, the university student strike entered its 31st day, and despite what students are calling progress in negotiations, there is still no agreement in sight. Today, the Shochat Committee on Educational Reforms discussed raising tuition while simultaneously creating aid packages for students who can't afford the hike. Student leaders said they did not intend to back down on their struggle. At 6 o'clock this evening, the annual Jerusalem Day March will set out from City Hall Square through the streets of the capital. Some 10,000 people, residents of the city, as well as visitors from across the globe, are set to take part in this festive event. This year's celebrations mark the reunification of Israel's capital 40 years ago in the 1967 Six-Day War. This evening's parade will include elaborate floats, dancers, jugglers, stilt walkers, and music groups. Jerusalem Day events will also take place throughout the city tomorrow. As for those planning to take part, be forewarned, many of the streets in the city's downtown area have been closed off to traffic. Ahead of Jerusalem Day, several experts on the city, both Israeli and Palestinian, got together under the auspices of the Foreign Press Association to discuss the future of the capital. Not surprisingly, the panelists disagreed on most aspects of the capital, including its geographical boundaries.
I think the most important thing we must do, the first thing, is to define where is Jerusalem. What do we mean by Jerusalem? Because Jerusalem now, from an Israeli point of view, it's almost near Jericho. It's near Metzbeh Yericho. All this area towards the east, almost 25% of the West Bank, for the Israelis it is Jerusalem. And they want to annex it because it is Jerusalem. So we have to define what we mean by Jerusalem.
As a result of the 1947 UN partition resolution, the concept of Jerusalem, we can argue about whether or not a corpus separatum is good for Israel, is good for the Arabs, is good for the region, but in terms of the geopolitical perspective, everybody at that time knew that Jerusalem extended from Ramallah in the north to Bethlehem in the south. And east almost as far as where today basically Ma'ale Adumim is, and west probably by Mivaseret Zion. Anybody looks at the map, that's to be picked up. So the idea of sort of blaming Israel for expanding Jerusalem's municipal borders, I don't think that's very fair, because those borders were the ones that always were conceived, even by those who were not exactly in favor of the establishment of the State of Israel one way or another.
The Zionist movement never ever in its history asked for sovereignty in the holy places or in Old Jerusalem. On the contrary, I have all the quotations from Theodor Herzl going on to Menachem Begin through Ben Gurion, who say that the holy places is a burden on Israel. It's not such a big asset for us. So I think so, it is a burden on Israel, and we have to get rid of this place. Get rid not in the sense that we give it to the Palestinians, there's going to be a Palestinian flag there. No Israeli will accept it. To get this place out of the conflict, you should find international arrangement.
There are
speculations that Algerian voters might boycott the parliamentary elections set for this coming Thursday due to their lack of interest during the campaign season. One of the reasons that may discourage people from voting is the division among Islamic parties, especially the National Reform Movement, which is the Islamic movement that won the largest number of votes in the last elections. Another reason is the fact that Algerians have gotten bored with the traditional election platforms and political discourse.
2 weeks into the elections, one can clearly see the low turnout among Algerian citizens in their attendance of political events organized by competing political parties throughout the country. It seems that Algerian citizens were not enticed by political speeches and promises, as most political parties have started to sound the same.
The Algerian people supported the Civil Reconciliation Initiative, and now we are reaping the fruits of this initiative, thanks to God. Security has returned, hope has returned to citizens, and stability has returned. People once again can walk in the streets day and night.
We are calling for the activation of Article 47 of the Charter for Peace and National Reconciliation. The Algerian people gave an unprecedented authority to the President of the Republic to do whatever he sees fit to resolve the crisis once and for all.
Perhaps one of the obvious trends seen during these elections is the decrease in the popularity of the Islamic parties, which called for boycotting the elections. This comes amidst the division that grew within the National Reform Party after it had decided to prevent Abdullah Jaballah from running in the upcoming elections. This may open the door for the party of the Islamist Movement for the Society of Peace Association to win the Muslim votes, especially since the leader of the party is a charismatic speaker.
No one has monopoly over Islam. No one has monopoly over democracy. No one has monopoly over nationalism. And no one has monopoly to speak in the name of the people. The people did not give you the authority to speak in their name. And no one has monopoly over the people's right to choose change should they elect so. If people are determined to live in dignity, they shall have it. The darkness must fade out and the shackles must be broken.
Knowledgeable sources predict that the parliamentary elections on May 17th will witness one of the lowest turnouts. The two reasons being the lukewarm election campaigns and the division among the Islamic parties.
I think that the Algerian people have become bored with the traditional political discourse. Also, the religious parties, which used to enjoy the support of many voters, are now absent due to the division amongst them. These parties which used to have an impact on Algerian voters are now marginalized.
Regardless of the turnout in the Algerian parliamentary elections, the new Algerian parliament will face internal challenges, both at the political and economical levels. To overcome those challenges, the new parliament needs to pass firm legislations to end the corruption and raise the living standards of Algerian citizens. For Al-Madar program, Saad Rafi, Abu Dhabi Television, Algeria.
Islamic Revolution leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei told university students in Mashhad on Tuesday a dividing line needs to be drawn between a model the West presents to man and that of Islam. The leader said Iran's progress becomes a reality only when the country draws on an Islamic Iranian model, something which requires scholars to lay down a comprehensive plan to that end. Ayatollah Khamenei said scientific process in Iran is moving at a record pace, something which has been the most complicated technologies designed at home. The leader said other nations can do after the fashion of the Islamic Iranian model Iran introduces. Fresh from a two-nation tour of the Persian Gulf, President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad told reporters Tuesday Iran's foreign doctrine approves of establishing ties with world nations, Islamic countries in particular. The president then described as fruitful his Persian Gulf trip and said Iran, the UAE and Oman have urged bids to retain regional peace and stability and help Iraqis decide their own future. Ahmadinejad said Iran is ready to open ties with Cairo if Egypt voices its readiness. Iran's top nuclear negotiator Ali Larijani and EU Foreign Policy Chief Javier Solana agreed to hold talks on May 31st. The agreement was made when Solana called Larijani on Tuesday afternoon. The two officials emphasized the need to reach a logical settlement of the nuclear dispute through negotiations. Larijani and Solana held the latest round of talks in Ankara on April the 25th to 26th. 57 representatives gathered in Islamabad, Pakistan on Tuesday to open the 34th ministerial meeting of the Organization of Islamic Conference. Islamic envoys will discuss different questions of the world of Islam and international developments during the three-day meeting. Foreign Minister Manucher Motaki told the gathering if weapons disarmament and arms control are enforced and followed through in line with the UN Charter and free from any discrimination, regional and international peace and security can be something accessible. Motaki said unilateral policies of few countries which are in possession of lethal weaponry pose a grave threat to the world. He added the same states are trying by vain attempts to deprive other countries, including Iran, of peaceful use of nuclear energy. On the margins of the OIC meeting, Motaki held separate talks with his counterparts from Bangladesh, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Yemen, and Deputy Foreign Minister from Kazakhstan to discuss regional and Islamic questions. The Iranian top diplomat said bullying powers are trying to impose their domination over Islamic states by breaking all international rules. He added Islamic nations and independent countries will by no means give way to foreign pressures. And UN nuclear inspectors say Iran is pressing ahead on a larger scale than ever with the uranium enrichment activities. This, according to a New York Times report on Tuesday, which said the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, made a short-notice inspection Sunday of Iran's main nuclear facility in Natanz and found that all of its 1,300 centrifuges were up and running smoothly, producing nuclear fuel. The paper said the centrifuges, quote, were producing fuel suitable for use in nuclear reactors, citing diplomats and nuclear experts in Vienna, where the agency is based.
السيد الرئيس بشار الأسد صباح اليوم الفنان السيد دريد لحام وسام الاستحقاق.
President Bashar al-Assad awarded the Syrian Order of Merit of Excellent Degree to the Syrian actor Durade Laham in appreciation of his lifelong art performances and various plays, which have enriched art in Syria and the Arab world. During their meeting, President al-Assad and Laham reviewed the role of artists in serving society and the homeland, in addition to promoting their art to develop society and boost innovation. Laham expressed appreciation of President Assad for honoring art and artists in Syria, wishing him good health, progress, and prosperity to the homeland under his wise leadership. Also attending the meeting were Dr. Ghassan Laham, the Minister of Presidential Affairs, and Dr. Riyad Nassan Aha, the Minister of Culture, as well as Durade Laham's family.
والدكتور رياض ناصر آغا وزير الثقافة وعائلة الفنان دريد لحام.
We present the following report, which details the actor Durade Laham's career highlights.
دريد لحام ذاكرة الفن السوري ونجم الكوميديا العربية الأهم.
Durade Lahem, the renowned Syrian actor and the most important Arab comedian, chose art as a way to express his bold ideas and ambitions with a simple, humorous spirit. People were fascinated with his story. His story is one of success and a long journey filled with innovation, exhaustion, and hardship. The talented artist Durade Lahem began his artistic journey on a stage at a university theater. His career took off when he adopted the famous character Goar al-Tosha, who symbolized the average Syrian who works hard just to make a living. He represented a satirical, smart, and at times rebellious personality. The star of Arab comedy took center stage at the theater. The best and most famous of his plays in the Arab world were Gorba, Sheikh al-Noman, Kasak ya Watan, and Dait al-Tishrin. In the 1980s, he headed to the cinema, advancing in successful films which were unique because they daringly addressed various issues. Such movies included Al-Hudud, Al-Tikrir, and Kafrun. All of these films criticized what was wrong with Arab society and embodied the miseries of the average man, which are felt by all Arabs in every part of the region. Because he paid much attention to children's causes, he was appointed as a goodwill ambassador for UNICEF in Syria and struggled on the side of the children in occupied Palestine, the children of the stones who live under the brutality and harshness of the Zionist enemy. President Bashar al-Assad's Merit of Excellence Degree Award to the Syrian actor Durade Lahem comes as a crowning moment in his long acting career that includes his various and unique roles which enriched art in Syria and the entire Arab region.
التي أغنت مسيرة الفن في سوريا وعلى امتداد الوطن العربي.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only.